So this quilt has really a good story. So as you can see, this quilt has a lot of borders on it. So I'm going to show you today a short trick that I learned because I was actually desperate. I made this quilt and I love this quilt. This is actually Kaffe Fassett helped me design this quilt, so I'm pretty excited about it. And as you can see, it's border after border after border. It's like a large log cabin quilt. So I made this quilt, I put it together, and then I put it on my long arm, and I got about half of the quilting done, and I realized I had messed this quilt up just horribly. I was in a hurry, and what I did is I just slapped the borders on. We all know I shouldn't do that, but man, I did it. And so I slapped the borders on, and then I started quilting, and it was wavy, it was horrible, it was terrible. So what I have had to do is I have had to go through, and I think I'm not quite done because I want to show you how borders go on, that I came up with this little trick. But I think there's 27 different borders on this quilt. So multiply that by 4, because of course there's 4 sides. And I had this completely pieced, and like I said, ruined the whole thing. So I went back, and this was densely quilted, very densely quilted, and I picked out every single one of those borders, tore the whole thing apart piece by piece, started in the center, and then slowly built back up. And now I'm on my last 3 borders. I'm pretty excited, but I found a simple way to put some borders on. I think it's simple at any rate, so that it's easier. First of all, the one thing that I learned is I have this, after you get a quilt pretty large, if you put it on a cutting table or whatever, it's too long and it's hard to measure. You know that if you're going to put a border on a quilt, you're going to usually, let's assume it's right here. Usually what you're going to do is you're going to measure here, you're going to measure in the middle, and then you're going to measure on here, add those all up, divide them by 3, and that's your border size. And that's great while it's small, but after it gets pretty large, it gets more difficult. So what I found is, this is my long arm, okay? I have laid my quilt on my long arm. So to put the border on, this is the center of the quilt. So as you can see, it's sitting, just laying across my bars. Now, it doesn't have to be a long arm, but if you have something that's really long that you can just lay this across, your quilt across, there's a simple way to measure the borders and make them fit so that's all nice and flat. Because now this quilt, as I've pieced it, is nice and flat. So I'm going to stop a second and show you how I'm going to cut these borders so that they're going to fit correctly. So what I've done here is, this is my border. This is a wide border. Now, the other thing I did after I tore out all of this fabric is as I took them off, I really starched them. I used that material, I think it's called Material. I took a picture of it, and I'll put it on the blog. But these are very, very stiffly starched. So what I've done is I've laid this on top. I've already got one border on of this particular fabric. So I'm going to lay this on the very edge, and with the middle of my quilt right here, I'm going to lay this on the edge, and then I'm going to, here's the end. So all I have to do is, here's the end up here. I'm going to mark this and I'm going to cut it. But I want you to see, I had originally, when I had just slapped those borders down. This is how much I had stretched that. I'm gonna cut that off. I thought, when I started taking this apart, I thought, well, I must have forgotten a border. I couldn't have been that far off. But obviously, I must have been that far off. So, I mean, it makes a huge difference. And I've been quilting for many, many years. I know better than to do what I did. But I was in a hurry, and I thought it would work. And I was wrong. But that's how much extra fabric I eased into that by stretching it and just laying it down. So you can really screw up a quilt. Now, mine is worse because it had many borders on it. But if you only have one, it's not going to be that bad. One border or two borders on the outside. It's not going to be that bad. But this is how bad it can get. So do it the right way. Don't do it the way I did it. So as you can see, like I said, here's the edge here. Here's the edge here. I'm going to just mark this. And the reason it works is because now I'll put this at the top of the, I'll sew it to the top of this quilt, and I may have to ease a little bit because the middle is never exactly the same width as the top, but that's okay because everything is to the middle of this quilt. So I'll just, if I was doing two borders, I would lay two borders down here, a top and a bottom, and cut them. And that way when I would ease in on the ends. And you'll get a very flat, perfect quilt. So I'm almost done with, this has only taken me 3 weeks to unsew. And I have more thread hanging around my house, and you wanna think about. This is just from, this is just from a couple of pieces. So honest, there was a lot of thread all over my house. So don't do what I did. And I'm getting ready to move, so that's why you see all the boxes. But I'll put this on, and you'll see it fits just perfectly. I'm going to mark it in the middle, and then again on the middle of them every quarter of the way through on the quilt, and match it up to the top, and it's all going to work just perfectly.